starting now.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and today, not only do I have my guest joining me, Steve Andrews, and we're going to be talking about the Tenerife and Bosnia pyramids and if they can help rewrite history. But I've got two co-hosts, John Strobel and Gerald Riggins, here to help me out. Pardon me, folks. In my time of need, when I just got out of the hospital, found out I got emphysema, and I'm doing good to talk. As y'all can hear, I got a hoarse voice, and I'm kind of, getting a little phlegm up here. That's why they're here to help me. But I'm going to muddle through this here show as best I can. Try to, make it as entertaining as possible. If anybody that wants to listen live, come to www.paranormalpalace.com/test-radio/ or just come to paranormalpalace.com and click on live radio. The call-in number is 832-632-7904. Usually I take calls during the show, but I'm going to start something new this time. And why don't we try calling in at about the last 30 minutes or so of the show with all questions and see how that works out. And since I've got two co-hosts, why don't we do a round of introductions for everybody? Oh, one more thing before we do that. If you want to learn more about Steve Andrews, also known as Bardavelli, you can go to www.moon-books.net/books/herbs-the-northern-shaman. And you can learn more about them there. And you also got the links on my website. And John, why don't we start out with let everybody know a little something about you real quick.
Okay, my name is John Strobel. I'm the founder and director of Houston Ghost Town Paranormal Investigations out of Houston, Texas. And I've been doing paranormal investigations for about 10 years now. Had paranormal experiences pretty much all my life. And I spent 10 years as a rescue captain in the fire department.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. You had quite an active life going for yourself there. Now, you're still active with your ghost investigating, right?
Absolutely.
Are you still got that site on Meetup?
Yes.
Can you give me a URL real quick?
Sure. I'll post it here in the, it's www.meetup.houstonghost_45.
Alrighty. So, Gerald, you want to tell us a little something about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Gerald Riggins. I have cerebral palsy. I like to ghost hunt despite the odds of people thinking you have a disability, you can do this. I do it. Right now, I'm the equipment tech manager for Houston Ghost Towns. I've been with Houston Ghost Town since maybe the very latter part of 2007, early 2008. I've been with them ever since. I enjoy going out with John and the group. They do make accommodations for me from time to time. I've had some experiences with these guys that we've had on site, and I'm just enjoying it. So here I am with you, helping you co-host today. I'm enjoying doing this as well. So let's have a good one, man.
Okay. Steve, I saved you for last since the show's about you and your pyramids, and that way you can lead right from a little talk about yourself and to what got you interested in the pyramids, and we'll get us a start from there. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself and what got you interested in these pyramids?
Okay, thank you, Royce. I'm basically, I'm all sorts of things. I'm a writer, and I'm a naturalist, and I'm a singer-songwriter, and an author, and I come from Cardiff in Wales originally, but I moved over to Tenerife in the Canary Islands at the end of 2004, which is where I'm based now. And my real name is Steve Andrews, so as a writer I'm Steve Andrews, but I used to write for a magazine called Big Issue Magazine. It's for homeless people. And they sort of dubbed me the Bard of Ely. And I was living on an estate called Ely at the time, so being a singer-songwriter, it sort of made sense that I was the Bard of Ely, and I thought, yeah, I like that as a name, as a title. So I adopted that as my stage name. So I'm commonly known as Bard of Ely, but as I say, I'm also Steve Andrews. It's a bit confusing, I know, but anyway, as I say, I moved over to Tenerife, and one thing which attracted me to the island as soon as I got here was I found out about the Guanches, who were the people who used to live here before the Spanish conquest. And also I became interested because I'm very sort of taken with nature and the botany and animals, wildlife, all of that. And I found like these dragon trees here, which are just completely amazing. So I got interested in dragon trees and the Guanches, and I found out there were pyramids here in a place called Guimar. And I went down to see these, and there were 6 of these pyramids, and they're very controversial. There's an ongoing debate about their reality or non-reality. And we have here some of the academics here, the archaeology professors in the university. They say that these are not real pyramids at all. They were made 19th century or later, and they go as far as to say they're just piles of stones. On the other side, we had the world famous, the late Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian world explorer, and Heyerdahl was famous for crossing the Pacific on his raft, the Kon-Tiki, which you've probably heard of. Anyway, what actually happened was that Thor Heyerdahl he read about these so-called pyramids in a newspaper article, and he was that interested that he came over to the island. And what happened was he went to have a look at these constructions, which are on some vacant land here, and he decided that they were the same as step pyramids, which he'd seen in his explorations of the world, and he'd been to Peru and Mexico and various places, and he thought they were step pyramids. So he actually decided he was going to move here. So he came to live in Guimar, where he could investigate the pyramids more, and he became friendly with a shipping magnate, a guy called Fred Olsen. And Mr. Olsen runs all the ferry services here between the other Canary Islands. And being a very wealthy man, Fred Olsen could put some money behind a plan that the two men had sort of hatched, which was that they could buy the land that the pyramids were on. And so Fred Olsen bought the land that the pyramids are on, and they set up what is called the Ethnographic Park of Guimar. And they made a big wall all around where the pyramids are. They tidied them all up quite a lot and made like pathways around them. And they have like a centre, which is where visitors to the area sort of would call in at the reception area there and buy a ticket to go in. And then they have like an auditorium where there's a film show narrated by Thor Heyerdahl, talking about his discoveries in the world and about his theories. And there are displays of Thor Heyerdahl's his rafts and everything that he'd been doing. And also there's a restaurant and various gardens as well. Which so it's like a huge experience. If you go to the ethnographic park, you can sort of wander around there. But the main focus being, of course, these pyramids. But they're not the only pyramids on the island. You see, there are actually other pyramids in some villages on the other side of the island. There were some actually quite near where I live. And I live in a village called San Marcos, which is down on the coast near Ica de los Pinos. And there is a road that goes through the farmland here. The road is called the Camino de la Suerte, which is the path or the way of the luck. And it was sort of my luck that I was walking down there the one day just after I'd moved into this area. And I thought, oh my God, it's a pyramid, it's actually in a banana plantation. And I thought, well, this is just really cool to have like, a pyramid more or less on my doorstep, so to speak. And that was how I came to find out about this local one. there's another local one further along the road. And another village called Santa Barbara, which is about maybe 2 kilometers outside of Ica de los Pinos. There are, it's like a little complex of pyramids there. There's one very large one, which is a 5-sided pyramid. And that, again, is right in the middle of some farmland. So you can't get to it because it's got, farmers' fields all around it. And another one, which is actually right next to a building. It's like a housing development, and it's got this huge pyramid sort of next to it. Part of the back of that one has all sort of fallen away. And then there are 2 smaller ones. And there's also a road which cuts through where one of these constructions used to be. And you can see what's left of the stonework right at the edge of the road. So, we can tell from that certainly some of these constructions on the island, whatever they are, whoever made them, they have also been destroyed by roadworks and presumably by other building developments and the construction of farms and everything else that has been done here. So we actually don't have any real idea as to how many of these constructions once existed. But we have some which survive. As I say, we have the famous ones in Guima, and we have some in Santa Barbara, and we have some just outside San Marcos. And they're not the only ones. There's a pyramid in La Palma, which is one of the other Canary Islands. And it is believed that there were once a lot more of these constructions on La Palma.
Wow.
So basically that's the situation, with the pyramids here, and how I got involved in sort of investigating them and being interested.
Okay, well, first thing I want to do is thank you for being on my show once again, and I want to thank Gerald and John for coming to my rescue in my time of need. I didn't want to let that go by unnoticed. But also, one of the things I wanted to ask you is because the titles in these articles I read indicate that there's a possibility that these pyramids can rewrite history. Is this because they're larger than the Great Pyramid, or is it because they're older, or what's different about them that stands out and might help them rewrite history?
Well, the thing is that I'm just going to come to Sam Osmanagic, who is the man who is now world famous for the Bosnian pyramids, which he discovered. The Bosnian pyramids have the same sort of controversy about them as the pyramids here. That again, we have like academics who are saying these are not pyramids at all. In fact, over there, they don't say that they are piles of stones that the farmers threw there. They say over there that they're just natural hills. But Sam has had like excavations done now, and he has turned up a lot of what he is saying is a man-made concrete which is underneath the soil there. And there are huge slabs of this, and he says that is proof that these were actually artificially made constructions. So that's the main part of his argument. Also, he found that there are tunnels underneath these pyramids or hills in Bosnia, and he is again saying that this tunnel sort of system under there is something which has been found at other pyramids in other places in the world, and it's again proof that the pyramids were actually made by people. He is saying that these pyramids are actually the biggest pyramids in the world and are bigger than the pyramids in Egypt. And that in itself would rewrite history if it was accepted, because at the moment people are saying the Egyptian pyramids are the biggest in the world. As I say, Sam says the ones in Bosnia are actually larger again. And the dating of all this is another matter that, people would say, well, when were these things made? And that has to be established. The situation here in Tenerife is that the pyramids here, including the biggest, are not particularly big. They're nowhere near as big as, the main Egyptian pyramids or these Bosnian pyramids, but they're nevertheless, impressive to look at. I say that they are step pyramids with, different levels as they go up, and the main one in Santa Barbara is a standalone construction. It's got, you can walk all around it. It's got these definite stepped sides to it, and it's got 5 sides. So, for those people who want to say that they are piles of stones that the farmers put there to get rid of the rocks off their land, you would say, well, why did they spend all this time making this extravagant construction with stepped levels to it and 5 sides? I mean, it doesn't really make much sense. And a lot of people, if you take them to see these constructions, they'll just say, oh, in no way is that a pile of stone.
Well, there's
that is the line.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's the line that the professors here are putting out, which a lot of people have accepted, because they just say, oh, well, they're experts, they must know what they're talking about. But it doesn't really make much sense when you see these things. And as I say, with the ones in Guimar, again, the size of them is not that big. But if you look at pyramids around the world, there are lots of other places where there are smaller pyramids, including in Egypt. Apart from the main pyramids there are a lot of smaller pyramids. And also in other places, you have, like many places in Central America and South America. And also we have, like, in Mauritius and Sicily, on these islands, there are pyramid constructions. And they are not that big either. But they all have, a similar sort of, they have like step levels to them. But there are different types of pyramids. Some pyramids have been made out of volcanic rock, which the ones here have been done, because, I mean, these are volcanic islands, and so that's what the people here had to build them with. But there are, different pyramids around the world. There's also like pyramids which have been discovered in China, which are, again, the subject of a lot of debate, because the ones over there are actually covered over with vegetation, so it looks as if they've been deliberately sort of hid by the authorities there, who don't want people to know anything about this. And this sort of comes to, your question about why this is rewriting history, is that it appears that the authorities or the academic experts or governments or whoever you want to say, the people in control are not looking to say, yes, ancient people were able to make pyramids around the world and they had abilities which we don't necessarily even have today. It's a bit like the idea of, with the Egyptian pyramids, that they say, well, how did they make them? And you can't even get a race between the stones. This is fantastic building work. The question could be asked equally with, how did these people in Bosnia make these massive pyramids there, which are even bigger? How did they make the ones in China are really big? How did they make these huge pyramids in China? What is all this about? And over here in the Canary Islands in Tenerife, the idea is that the Guanche people were actually very primitive Stone Age people. And so, basically they're trying to say it would be totally impossible for people who were living in caves and, didn't really have that much in the way of technology or tools to build constructions like this. But the situation there is that the Guanches didn't have metal work because there was no source of metal on the islands. These are volcanic islands, and of course there is no ore here, so they didn't have iron ore or any other form of ore they could have used. So what they did use is they used what they had here. They had rock here, and they had like a semi-precious rock, obsidian, which they made knives and things out of. And they made other stuff from wood. But it appears that they did have knowledge of geometry, because they made things which are called pintaderas. This is what they are known as today. And these are thought to be like artistic seals or stamps which were used to mark either something that belonged to you, or even to mark yourself. That you could put like a dye or a paint on there and stamp it on, say, on your arm, and it would make like a tattoo, an adornment for your body. And these things are all geometric. There were some with like triangles on, and there's one with like a spiral on there. And also, that just shows that they had knowledge of geometric shapes. The idea is as well is that the Guanches were actually descendants of the Berber people from North Africa, from Libya and Morocco and the Atlas Mountains, which is where the Berber people live. And the Berber people are white-skinned, and this is of the mystery about the Guanches is this is off the Canary Islands are off the coast of North Africa, and you would think, well, surely the people living off the coast of Africa would be Negroid, but they're not. They were all white. Some of the Guanches had blonde hair or reddish hair and blue eyes and white skin, and some of the others were more like Mediterranean, with like a browner skin and dark hair, dark eyes. But they were all nevertheless, European, Caucasian, white-skinned people. So that was part of the mystery of the Guanches, and so most people have accepted that they were of Berber extraction, and that the idea is somehow or other they came over from Libya or other parts of North Africa to the Canary Islands and settled here. They're actually part of the mystery with that is that it is said that the Guanches didn't have boats and they had no boat technology when the Spanish invaded the islands. But then you could say, well, how did they get here? It's pretty obvious that they must have come on boats or been brought here on boats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, was you fixing to say more?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's the Guanches, and it appears likely that they were the people that made these constructions, because there was nobody else to make them at that time period that we know of. Although it is possible that there were other people who were coming to the islands who were like seafaring people. And this comes back to like Thor Heyerdahl. Thor Heyerdahl had the idea that long ago there were people who were crossing the oceans using rafts, and they were exchanging their culture with the people on the other continents that they would go to. And at the time that which was actually 1947, when he went across the Pacific Ocean on the Kon-Tiki, the idea was being put out that Columbus was the first person to cross the oceans, and and he sort of said, well, no, I think other people can cross oceans, and I'm going to do it myself, and he proved it could be done. So that sort of established the fact that you could cross the ocean on a raft, and so there was no reason why people couldn't have been doing this long ago. And that obviously sort of made you think, well, if they could cross the oceans long ago, there was no reason that people who maybe made pyramids from one continent didn't go to another continent and make the pyramids there. So that makes it a little bit confusing, but it sort of establishes that long ago there were people sort of crossing the oceans, and certainly it wasn't Columbus, the first to sort of do this. So that's one possibility. There were actually other people that made the pyramids, that it wasn't the Guanches, or maybe they sort of shared their technology with the Guanches, we don't know. There is one other sort of theory which has been put forward, which is the Freemasons made the pyramids. And the idea there, there is a very strong Freemason presence on the island, and the islands were, as I say, were taken over by the Spanish in conquest, which would have been in the final conquest was 1497, I think it was. And the people who were then the landowners here were all very wealthy noblemen and Spanish sort of conquistadors. And a lot of these people, later with their families would have become Masonic families, and there are a lot of places here which are conspicuously Freemason. There are in a little a town called La Wataba, there is a Freemasonic gardens there, which is again into the levels, and there's a mausoleum there to a marquis who died, and this is what the gardens is like. It's all sort of in his memory, and he was a Freemason. So as to say, you cannot argue that there are not Freemasons here, because there are, and the Freemasons are quite open. They advertise in the papers here, and they hold open meetings and things. But this theory was put forward to say that Freemasons in the 19th century or whatever were the people who actually made the pyramids. But we don't really have any proof of that. So we don't have any proof of any of it really. We don't have any proof that the Guanches made them. We don't have any proof that the Freemasons made them, and we don't really know when they were made. On the subject of when they were made, there was a piece of 19th century pottery which was apparently found in. There was some sort of partial excavations done by the university here, and they turned up a piece of 19th century pottery. So they said, okay. The constructions themselves must have been later than this piece of pottery. But now it depends on who you listen to. That there are, people from, if you like, the academic community that are saying that the pottery was found at the base of a pyramid, and there are other people who, I know one guy, David, who works at the Ethnographic Park, and he says, no, that's wrong, that the pottery was actually found on a higher level of the pyramid, and so it doesn't really prove anything. It just proves that at some stage that piece of pottery got there. So again, we don't know. We haven't really had any excavations done on most of these pyramid constructions properly to find out any more than what has been discovered at that point in time. So they're just there, and the ones on the other side of Ireland that I've been talking about, the ones near San Marcos and the ones in Santa Barbara, they're more or less ignored. They're not talked about by the academic community. They're not talked about in the newspapers here. They're not talked about in books. They're just there. I mean, the people that live in locally, people that live in these villages know about them because they see them. They walk past them or whatever. Then in Santa Barbara, there's a cake shop, and they're calling themselves the Pasteleria della Piramide. The cake shop or the bakery shop of the pyramids, because it's something to help sort of attract attention to their business, and they've got this dirty, five-sided pyramid behind them on the land. So it's obvious to people that live there about the pyramids, but you won't find any sort of information on websites about the Canary Islands, and you won't read about them in newspapers here or in magazines or anything. And it is a fact that a majority of people of the island don't actually know anything about them.
Wow.
It's that bizarre, is that, that really a lot of the people that live here don't know about these pyramids. People who come to the islands don't know anything about the pyramids. And if you went to one of the resorts and you said, what can you tell me about the pyramids at Tenerife? They'd say, well, we didn't know there were any. What pyramids? What are you on about? They might know of the Guimar ones if they knew of any pyramids here at all, because, as I say, these ones have had a lot of money invested in them. So Fred Olsen bought the land. They built this ethnographic park there. And, they do things like, T-shirts and flyers and whatever to attract attention to the place, to try and get people to go there. And that's another part of the argument that is actually being said, that it was just a money-making scheme between Thor Heyerdahl and Fred Olsen to set this place up and get people to visit there and pay money. It's a tourist attraction. But even that sort of doesn't hold up well at all. Thor Heyerdahl came over here in 1991, and I have actually got a photo of a guy called Toby Bylon and Andrew Bylon, sorry, and the Bylons are a well-known family that live on Tenerife, and Andrew Bylon is actually standing on the top of one of these constructions. So that shows that it was here, before Heyerdahl was involved. And but not only that, my friend Ken Fisher, who is the former director of the English Library here, Ken has got very interested in all this, and he found a book which is by a Spanish author, and that was published in 1985, and it's in Spanish, and it's called Los Guanches, the Guanches. The author's name is Domingo Lima Dominguez, and he was born on the island in La Orotava, and he says quite clearly in the book, in Spanish, that the Palmeros, these were the Guanches that lived on the island of La Palma, that they, in honor of their god Abora, made a stone pyramid in each of the 12 kingdoms of the island. And that's what he says. So, obviously, if that's true, that they made pyramids in each of the kingdoms on La Palma, then you could say, well, why didn't the Guanches on Tenerife do that as well? Surely if the Guanches in one place could do this, then they could do it elsewhere. And then, as I say, this came out in 1985, so that was before Thor Heyerdahl was involved. Not only that, the book was published by quite respectable publishing house here, which was the Centre of Popular Culture for the Canary Islands. So, it wasn't a sort of self-published vanity press or anything. And as I say, the author was born on the island and was writing in Spanish, and that's what he had to say. And this author he was quoting the Spanish chroniclers. And that is quite important because most of the information we have about the Guanches has come down to us through whatever the Spanish chroniclers wrote. Obviously, there are no Guanches around today, so we can't sort of go and ask these people. And a lot of them were actually killed by the Spanish conquistadors. Others, the women were sort of married into the Spanish families. Some of the men were made into slaves. But basically, the Guanche culture as such was destroyed. Although some of it has survived. In fact, some of the Guanche words have survived. And we even have like a food which is gofio. And gofio is a form of toasted and ground up flour made with various cereals. And you can still buy gofio today, and a lot of people eat that as a staple food here. So that's one thing which has sort of survived from the Guanche era. And also some Guanche names have survived, and the names of places where which were their kingdoms. So on Tenerife they had 9 kingdoms, and a Guanche king was called a mense, and each mense had his area, which he was the boss for, if you like. And some of these names are still in use today, like Tacaronte was a Guanche kingdom, and also Icod and Daute and various other places here. The names have come down from the Guanche time. But the actual sort of historical records we only had really what the conquerors, the Spanish people, what their chroniclers wrote. And this is where the Spanish author was taking his information from. So he's been quoting the chroniclers. So we can assume that he was telling us, the truth about that the Guanches in La Palma made pyramids, and as I say, if they could make them there, why couldn't they make them here?
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. And the one thing I wanted to point out real quick before I move on to, my co-host, is that you made mention of the step pyramids, and you made mention that they were saying these are mud hills. I've never seen mud hills with step pyramids, and I've never seen mud hills as large or larger than the Giza pyramid. So something sounds like a lot of guesswork going on to me. But y'all can comment on that in a second. Real quick, I want to get some feedback and see if John or Gerald have any questions for you at this point. John, why don't we start with you?
Well, one of the things that kind of interested me about these pyramids is that in looking at the pictures that Steve had provided, the pyramids are made out of smaller rocks than, say, the Egyptian pyramids. So it was not as big a challenge as what the Egyptians faced in moving such huge and large. That was just all I had. It looked like it was much easier for them to carry the small stones and stack them.
It probably was, but still they could only go so high.
I'm wondering too if there was a reference to being man-made and stuff. So is that what they're differentiating? Is that the size of the rock that's causing them to just try to say whether the farmers threw it off to the side or whether there was actually a massive effort to make a pyramid?
Right, well, I can come in on that was that the Guimar pyramids, which was the ones that Thor Heyerdahl was involved with, they have it's volcanic rock, but was pointed out, and you can, if you go there, you can see this. They've got flat sides to them, so the rock facing you, if you're looking at one of these pyramids, is flat. So it's been like shaped or selected to have a flat side to it. That's one point that Thor Heyerdahl wanted to make about it, and also alignments have been found to sort of, for the midsummer solstice, that there are specific alignments that have been found, and the idea is, which I mean, one of the constructions there has got like a ramp or a stairway going up to it, and it has been suggested that a celebrant at a time like the summer solstice could have gone up the steps, so to speak, to get to the top plateau, and then when they got there, they would have been facing the rising sun, and that's why the steps were made in that particular way. That's come into the suggestions about this as well. And the idea is that they were all, aligned. They weren't just sort of made, put there any old how randomly. But they were put there with thought into their sort of geometric construction, and also how they aligned with the heavens. And the idea is also expressed that the Guanches, like a lot of pagan people around the world, paid a lot of attention to the seasonal changes, and so midsummer was a very important time to them, just as the winter solstice would be, and that they constructed these monuments, these pyramids, in the same way that other sort of ancient sites like Stonehenge were made to be aligned with changes in the heavens, which the people could actually observe. So if you went there at a certain time, you would see the sun or the light being changed by some way that these constructions have made, and that sort of goes more into the idea that they were used for ceremonial purposes, and they were there for celebrations that the people used to hold, and that is doesn't seem at all far-fetched to me, because again, all around the world we have constructions which are definitely have been used at specific times in the year.
Is there any other comments yet on that, John?
No, I was just curious about that.
Okay. Gerald, what about you? Do you have anything you want to comment on or question on as to where we're at so far?
Yes, I do. Steve, when I look at the images that I see of the pyramids, I mean, it's obvious to me, and of course, I represent only me in this statement, is they look like they were built by, someone with a conscience, and they weren't naturally made, in my opinion. And the more I look at it, and the more I see the steps and the elevation of it and everything, it's just hard to say that, well, it wasn't, but it is man-made, and for someone to kind of believe that it might be a natural state, I don't see any occurrences in nature where it looks like that.
Yeah, sure, Joel. It doesn't look like a pile of stones, which is what has been said. It's been said that, these are volcanic islands and there are rocks all over the place, but the idea that was put forward is that farmers here didn't want rocks all over their land, so they got the rocks and they put them all in a pile, and that's what these things are. It's also been suggested by the academics that they were agricultural terracing, and that you would build one of these pyramids so you could actually get a bit more land at the top, like the plateau section, and you could maybe grow your crop on there. And so it was a way of getting more land. Again, it sounds to me as if these are just sort of ideas that have been put forward to try and explain these things away, because they didn't want to admit that the Guanche people were able to make them, or indeed that anybody else had made them. If you like, it's a sort of embarrassment to the academic ways of looking at history and what they have to say about it. And as I say, they try to portray the Guanches as very primitive people. And it is true that the Guanches lived in caves, and they dressed in the skins of goats and animals which they domesticated, and they were in many ways like hunter-gatherers. That they went and found whatever they could find on the land here. They collected fruits and plants you could eat, and they killed small mammals and anything they could find really. And that they also kept goats and pigs, and they used to move around as well. Tenerife is basically a huge mountain, which is Mount Teide. And Mount Teide is the biggest mountain in all of Spain, because these islands, the Canary Islands, are Spanish islands, and Mount Teide is recognized as the biggest mountain in not only the Canary Islands but mainland Spain as well. And the Guanches actually believed that it was inhabited by an evil spirit that they call Guayota, and they used to take their goats up there in the summer, because the weather was warm enough to do this, to graze their flock of goats. Then they would take them back down to the coast in the winter, and that's one thing that they did. But they were people that moved about, and they couldn't sort of build like towns and cities like we have today, or like other civilizations of that time period had. Because they didn't have the tools. As I say, they didn't have metal here. They only had wood and stone. And so they were, they were in a situation where they had to live in Stone Age conditions.
Mm-hmm. Did you have anything else you'd like to add to that, Gerald?
Just one more statement.
Sure.
Steve, the thing is, if the Guanches did build it, I think they deserve credit in some form of a history book of some way. Because a lot of people, would really be interested in knowing these things.
Right. Well, I can come in. I wanted to mention this anyway, that there's an American author, Gordon Kennedy, and Gordon has a book out which is called The White Indians of Nivaria, or Nivaria. And this is a book that he got out a couple of years ago. And he is one of the people who believes fully that the Guanches were the people that made the pyramids here. Gordon has a website, and there's a video of him talking and explaining, basically, being interviewed and talking about his beliefs about the Guanches and about the pyramids and about all of this. So there is a book available, which, as I say, is by Gordon Kennedy. And I have, I think there's 2 photos of mine in there. And what happened here is that Gordon got in touch with me a few years ago to say he'd seen one of my photos on the internet of one of these Tenerife pyramids, and was it okay for him to use it in a book? And of course I said, well, yes, sure, go for it. And then a year or so after that, he got in touch to say he'd published this book, and he sent me a copy over. And we've kept in touch ever since. So that's one book on the subject which exists, and the book is called The White Indians of Nivaria. And Nivaria, by the way, means covered in snow, and it refers to Mount Teide, which I was just on about. And in winter, Mount Teide is generally covered in snow on the peak through the winter months. I mean, at the moment it isn't, and last winter it wasn't, but that's unusual. Usually it's got this incredible sort of gleaming white peak to it. And that can be there from November as far as May of the following year. As I say, Nivaria sort of refers to that, and they were the White Indians because they were white people. That's an interesting book that you might want to look up and maybe get your hands on, or you can look at his website. This is Gordon Kennedy, the White Indians of Nivaria.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I found all of that, pardon me, folks, I'm doing the best I can here, very interesting. And one of the things that comes to my mind that I can't help but wonder is is there anybody doing anything to get archaeologists to go out and examine this? Because some archaeologists don't work mainstream.
Well, I would love to see some archaeologists getting involved and, to do some proper excavations here. But I don't know of anybody actually doing that, or even sort of thinking about doing that. What I can say is that the late Philip Coppens, who died recently, I don't know if you've heard about that. But
oh, I heard about it, and I hate to see him go.
Which is really sad and a great shock, to many of us who knew Philip. Philip came over here in 2009 on my invitation because I wrote to him about the pyramids which were here, and he thought it was interesting because, as you probably know, like Philip also wrote about pyramids. Philip came over, and Sam Osmanagic was on the island at the same time, which was a very strange sort of coincidence that both these guys were here at that point in time, and they gave a lecture over here, talking about pyramids from around the world. But Philip had the belief that, what I was talking about the alignments of the pyramids was that he thought that the complexes were all laid out a certain way. And, I took him to see the ones in Santa Barbara, and we also went to see some, what I call them mounds, and Philip thought maybe that they were cairns, but whatever they are constructions. And he observed that it was the same sort of layout there, that you could see the sea sort of down below, you could see a mountain, and you had Mount Teide sort of behind all this, and he thought that was like a pattern which was being observed by the people that made these constructions. And he wrote about that. Philip also thought that there were probably others which had been on the islands, which had been destroyed by buildings and development here.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. Philip's been on my show at least twice now, and he was a fantastic guest. And I've been to his site and I've researched it. And I'm here to let you know that man knows about as much about ancient mysteries as anybody else is going to know. He travels around, he did travel when he was alive, to Guam or the Canary Islands or, anywhere he had to go to investigate and to learn more about this stuff. And he always had some interesting and thought-provoking input to put on all of it. Now, one of the things I would mention at this point is that all three of you guys are members of this site, and if y'all want to share links and stuff with each other, y'all can share it right through the message system in the members area to some of these here stuff that y'all may not have. I, for one, can get y'all the link to the article that Philip Coppens wrote on this. Now, the next thing I wanted to bring up on this is, have you talked to Michael Challenger?
Michael Challenger? No, I don't actually know who Michael Challenger is.
He's the author to Slave Species of the Gods and a couple other books, and he recently made a find of what he thinks is Inky's Abyss that he says is 250,000 years old. He might be interested in coming to check out these pyramids. Matter of fact, I could probably get a hold of him. I got his Skype info.
Well, that would be brilliant, Royce, if you could get him to come over here. But what I was also going to say was about Philip Coppens was that Philip and Sam were hoping to get some sort of an international pyramid conference organised at the ethnographic park here. But they put that idea to the management of the ethnographic park, and it sort of fell through. Basically, we had to wait a long time to get an answer, and the answer which Philip got was that they weren't really interested. So that never happened. But Philip and Sam were hoping that would really sort of put the whole, the mystery, the debate, the islands on the world map, and that would maybe cause some people to come here and carry out the excavations and find out, for once and for all, whether there is actually anything under these pyramids and what it's all about. And like I say, that never happened. And the pyramids on, my side of the island, as I say, are also sort of, they're more or less neglected. If you go to the ethnographic park in the centre itself, there is a wall with an exhibition of photos of pyramids from around the world. I think it's probably called something like that. And certainly one of the pyramids I mentioned, the one that's in this Camino de la Suerte, that pyramid is on there, and it's just called something like, La Suerte Pyramid Tenerife, and it doesn't say any more about it than that. So, that shows that it was known about, but it's never had any publicity as such. I mean, it's had more publicity through me and also now through Philip Coppens than it had before. I mean, it's just there. The other ones in Santa Barbara, again, they're just there. I mean, you won't find them on websites, you won't find them in books, you won't find any information about them. Since I found out about them, I mean, I've been writing about them. In fact, there's also on the Coast to Coast site, which I'm sure you know, Coast to Coast, there's a photo, one of my photos of the La Suerte pyramid is actually on there. So I've been just trying to spread the word about all this, and I would love to see somebody come and investigate this properly, but money is needed. Really, it's the usual thing that comes down to money. If you even if you wanted to do an excavation on one of these pyramids, which is on farmland, you'd have to pay the farmer. And something which Philip Coppens found out, which is very important to the whole issue, is that the pyramids in Guimar are safe. Like I say, Fred Olsen bought the land, and all of that, is like his land now, and that they have the ethnographic park there. But the other pyramids, the ones that I've been talking about near here in San Marcos, the ones in Santa Barbara, they're on farmland. And if the farmer there decided he didn't want this construction on his land anymore, that he wanted to level it, he wanted to bring in the bulldozers and do so, he could do that. There's no protection order on them. They're not recognised as of any importance to the Canary Islands, as a part of the history of the islands or anything. They're just there. They're just on farmland, and if somebody wanted to get rid of them, they can. So that is a great shame, but it also shows like how neglected they are and how little interest there has been shown in the whole subject. And with the Guimar ones, it was really only because Thor Heyerdahl was a world famous man, and that he came over here and wanted to talk about this and give his name to and his stamp of approval to say yes, these were step pyramids, that have made those pyramids there safe and, if you like, and also known to a lot of people.
Right. And I think there are some people that you can get to come out, but the funding, like you said, could be an issue. Nobody can afford to come out and excavate without some kind of funding, even if they were interested.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're going to have to pay, the farmers to excavate their land, and if you wanted to do excavations at the ethnographic park, again, I would imagine that they would want money. They want money to go in there. They're not going to say, yeah, sure, you can all come in here for free. But I don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe they'd say, yeah, yes, that'd be great. But whatever the situation is, there isn't anybody putting any money towards doing any proper exploration and investigations of the pyramids of Tenerife and indeed of La Palma. They just happen to be there.
And I guess that means nobody's actually went out to the tunnels either and seen where they lead to, have they?
Well, we don't really have any tunnels here. The tunnels are actually the Bosnian pyramids, and the situation there is that money was available because Sam Osmanagic has got a lot of money, and so he was able to to put some of his money towards, carrying out excavations there. Nobody has put any money towards doing anything over here. So, and I mean, the island right now, I mean, a lot of people over here are very poor, since the economic crisis, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people here are unemployed. They haven't got money. The island is struggling. It depends mainly on tourism. And, there's nobody saying, hey, let's put a lot of money towards investigating the pyramids.
Right. And I apologize, I interrupted you a second ago. I didn't mean to. I'm kind of running out of questions at this point. What about you, John? Do you have anything you want to ask or throw in on this here?
No. Steve pretty well covered everything that I had questions about. I was kind of wondering, too, about substructure or any caverns or tunnels. But the problem with the money is going to hold things up until somebody can really do an investigation. And all I can really add to the thing is to applaud Steve for his efforts in trying to get somebody to look at it. And I think efforts like this radio program he's doing today, or eventually somebody's going to hear and understand and see an article, and eventually help's going to come. I just feel like it's going to happen. So if he keeps up his work, I think that he'll see things come about that he's hoping to achieve.
All righty. And what about you, Gerald?
Again, I feel like Steve has also covered all my questions, and I am just thankful for, Steve doing this interview with us and everything. He's brought some great things to the table and stuff that I'm very interested in and continuing to learn about myself. But as far as questions go, Steve, you've addressed everything that I'd even thought about asking. So thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Gerald. And I just sort of came to mind something else which I haven't talked about. The islands here are riddled with caves, because as I say, this is a volcanic island, and the cave systems are really vast. There's a place called Cueva del Viento, the Cave of the Wind, which is actually very near Ecod, and is believed to be one of the largest volcanic tube cave systems in the world. So we do have a lot of naturally made caves and tunnels all over the place, and again, we don't really have all of them explored or investigated or catalogued, as far as I know. I mean, we have some of the main ones are known about, and but it is known that the Guanches used to use these caves. And something that is just occurring to me now as well, which is of interest, is that the Guanches used to mummify their dead, which has been suggested as like another link with the Egyptian culture and the other pyramid cultures around the world. That they had mummies which they used to leave in the caves, in sacred caves, and they also used to practice trepanation of drilling holes in the skull of living people, and that's another practice which has been which is known to have been done around the world in different cultures. But so getting back to the fact that they mummified the dead. They left them in their sacred caves where they were supposed to stay for all time, but unfortunately, tomb robbers or grave robbers, the Spanish when they came over here, and in later years have removed most of these mummies have been taken out, and any other sort of Guanche remains, and they can be now seen in museums, and also I think a lot of them went into various big collections, that's owned by wealthy collectors, and they were just taken away from their sacred resting places, and a lot of them were left in caves, and I just wanted to sort of bring that into the talk as well.
Alrighty. Was there anything else you'd like to bring up or approach?
I can't actually think of anything about guanches and pyramids as such at the moment. But I would like to put in a plug for my book, which you've already sort of, I think, plugged, Royce. Yeah, my book's Herbs of the Northern Shaman. So, that's a book of mine which was published by O Books, also like their imprint Moon Books, and it's subtitled "The Mind-Altering Plants," a guide to the mind-altering plants of the Northern Hemisphere, and that's a book of mine. So I'd just like to mention that as well. And if you want to find like information on me on the internet, you just like search Bard of Ely. You'll probably find too much. But there are a lot of sites with information about me. As I say, I'm a singer-songwriter, so you're going to find my music at a site like Reverb Nation. There's another site, Spotlight Zone. You're going to find my songs on there. And I write a lot of articles for various websites. I write for a website called Wizzly, and I write for Hub Pages. And I have a site called Tenerife Islander, which is, a part of Hub Pages. So if you look for Tenerife Islander, you're going to find stuff I've written about Tenerife. If you go to Wizzly.com, if you go to Hub Pages, if you just look for Bard of Ely, you'll find a lot of stuff I've written and stuff I'm involved in, and information on me. But I think I'll leave it at that.
Well, Steve, you got a blog on my site. Please feel free to write on that anytime you want to.
Yeah, okay. So, also, I've got a blog as well. I've got a blog called Green Bard. That's another name that I'm going under. I'm not just Bard of Ely. I'm also Green Bard. And when I've had a green beard, people have called me Green Beard, and people over here have called me Barber Verde. And I just thought, okay, using this green image again, I may as well just call myself Green Bard and write a blog about green issues, about conservation and nature and herbs and wildlife and butterflies and things. So, if you look for the Green Bard, you're going to find me as well.
Alrighty. Guys, if that's all y'all got and all I got, I guess we can call this one here a wrap. I want to remind everybody that, you want to listen live, come to www.paranormalpalace.com. We got a chat room over here. I offer groups and forums and blogs and other means of communication. It's for my show, but I built my show into a social network so that people could not only hear my show, but socialize and enjoy each other's company and share and what have you. And, please tell everybody about the show and, let them know what you think of it, if it's good, bad, or in between. Want to thank John and Gerald once again, and, I hope to see them back here, and, it's been a real pleasure working with them. Want to thank Steve, and Steve, you're going to always be welcome, right?
Yeah, thank you, Royce. Yeah, I look forward to coming on the show again sometime.
Good. Now you can get you another book out, maybe. Also, speaking of his book, I have a show I done with him on his book a month or so back. I'm not good with dates, but here a while back. And it's got his book cover, a link to his book on Amazon, a link to his website. It's right here in my archives. All you got to do is go in there and give her a listen. He did a lot of interesting work on these herbs and psychedelics, and he's honestly not the only person who's been interested in this. So has Micah Hanks, and so has Earl Lee, and God knows a list of others. Earl Lee really attached them to, the mushrooms, at least the mushrooms of them, to the psychedelics used by religions in times past. And Steve, you're probably familiar with that, aren't you?
Very much so, Royce, yeah. The fly agaric being one of these mushrooms, and also the psilocybin mushrooms. I could probably do a show just talking about psychedelic mushrooms.
I wouldn't doubt it a bit in the world, especially with all the guests that I've had on about it. I know that it's got a lot out there to be said about it. Real quick, like to let everybody know, this coming Tuesday at 8 p.m., my guest is going to be Marie Jones and Larry Flaxman, and we're going to be talking about their newest book called This Book is from the Future. It goes greatly in depth about time travel to people who are interested in time travel. It's a mixture of science, religion, philosophy about time travel. Very informative, very interesting. I read the book myself, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. With that there, I guess since I need to probably rest my voice a little bit, even though I had great help from my co-host, I'm going to call this show a quit right here. Hope to see more people in the chat room in the future. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. And John and Steve and Gerald, I hope you all enjoy a weekend, and not to do anything I wouldn't do if you could find such a thing. All righty, folks. Well, we're going to call that one done and in the sun. Let me go to my broadcaster here, and everybody have a good week.